Since the introduction of StatCast in 2014, teams and the general public alike have gained a fascination with the spin of a baseball. Gems have been found and careers have been saved by our increased understanding of spin's effect on a baseball. But one problem with this general awakening is that there are multiple ways of describing spin, and a lot of terminology, some different words meaning the same thing. So this lack of uniformity can cause confusion and disrupt streamlined communication. So in this video I'll be outlining a few different ways of talking about spin, the terminology associated with each of them, and the benefit of viewing spin that way. The Euler Angle approach is where you break down a ball's spin into its different axis components. From the pitcher's perspective facing home plate, the x-axis is side to side, the y-axis is back and forth, and the z-axis is up and down. Thus, x spin would be spin around the x-axis, y spin would be spin around the y-axis, and z spin would be spin around the z-axis. The spin components combine to make the spin axis, and their Pythagorean sum equals the total spin. This approach is great from a coding perspective, both because it naturally plays to a 3D environment, and because the spin axis won't change. The spin may decelerate and the velocity vector may change, but the ratio of x spin to y spin to z spin won't change. The downside, it's not great for communicating with players. See, the components are reliant on the trajectory, so when talking to a player about improving their pitch, it can be difficult for them to see if they're improving or not due to the fluctuations of trajectory. The second approach is similar, but instead of the axis being set in its surroundings, the Allen-Nathan approach is relative to the ball's trajectory. It basically takes the previous approach and rotates it so whatever would have been the y-axis is then parallel to the velocity vector. The spin components would be backspin, side spin, and gyro spin. This approach has two advantages. First, it helps you think in terms of active spin. Also known as true or useful spin, active spin is the amount of spin that actually goes into making the ball move. Gyro spin does not make the ball move, but backspin and side spin do. So taking the Pythagorean sum of backspin and side spin, and voila, you got active spin. The second advantage is that it's relevant throughout the flight. So imagine taking a ball and throwing it off a cliff with perfect gyro spin. Now initially, the velocity vector and spin axis are perfectly aligned, thus there's no active spin. But as gravity starts to drag the velocity vector down, the two become unaligned, and active spin will actually increase as gyro spin converts to side spin. So unless a ball is thrown with perfectly efficient backspin or topspin, the alignment of spin axis relative to the velocity vector will change, and this approach helps illustrate that. The third and final approach I'll cover in this video is the Rapsodo approach. Rather than breaking spin down into three components, this approach relies on two metrics, spin direction and gyro degree. Spin direction, also known as tilt, describes the direction of the active spin in either degrees or time, as if it were on an analog clock. It should be noted, however, spin direction is independent of the efficiency of the spin. For example, this fastball would have roughly a spin direction of 120 because the part of the baseball visible to the pitcher appears to be going from 120 to 720. The other metric of the Rapsodo approach, gyro degree, describes how many degrees from perfectly efficient the spin is. The proportion of total spin that is active spin, also known as spin efficiency, is the cosine of the gyro degree. So it should be noted, spin efficiency will always be positive, but gyro degree does have a sign. A positive gyro degree would be a righty cutting their fastball, while a negative gyro degree would be a righty overpronating. Two pitches can have the same spin efficiency and tilt, but different axes, but replacing efficiency with gyro degree leaves no doubt to the axis being described. The advantage is that this approach is used by most available technology today. So in terms of communication between players, coaches, and technology, the Rapsodo approach is best. Each approach to talking about spin has its own benefits. The key, regardless of what approach you take, is for everybody to be on the same page. It doesn't matter whether I'm talking about active, true, or useful spin as long as you understand what I'm saying. Well, hopefully this video improved your ability to communicate about spin and gives me a bit more leeway to use jargon in future videos. Have a nice day.